The shuttle bay of Galactic Military Academy buzzed with excited chatter as hundreds of new cadets arrived from across the known galaxy. Young warriors from 47 different species stepped onto the polished floors, their eyes wide with wonder and ambition. This was the most prestigious military school in the galaxy, and only the best of the best received invitations to attend. Sarah Chen adjusted her uniform as she walked through the massive entrance hall. The human contingent was small this year, only 5 humans, among 300 cadets. She noticed the stares from other species. Some looked curious, others looked dismissive. Humans were not exactly famous for their military prowess across the galaxy. "Look at them," a voice clicked in harsh tones nearby. The talking species actually came to warrior school. Sarah glanced over to see a group of krill cadets, tall insectoid beings with sharp mandibles and 4 powerful arms. Their exoskeletons gleamed under the lights, and their compound eyes tracked her movement with unsettling precision. The one who spoke, whose name tag read Vexthor, chittered something that made his companions laugh. She kept walking. First-day nerves were normal for everyone, she reminded herself. The orientation ceremony took place in the grand auditorium. Cadets from dozens of species filled the tiered seating. Sarah sat with her fellow humans. Marcus, Chen, Rodriguez, Park, and Jackson. They were quiet, observing everything carefully. At the front of the auditorium, the Academy Commandant, a massive Vorath with dark green scales and scars covering his arms, stepped to the podium. His name was Commander Zelak, and his reputation preceded him. He had fought in 7 major conflicts and survived battles that killed thousands. "Welcome to Galactic Military Academy," Zelak's voice rumbled through the speakers. "You are here because your worlds believe you have potential. Whether you prove them right or wrong depends entirely on your choices during the next 4 years. He outlined the training program. Standard combat simulations, tactical studies, ship operations, survival training, physical conditioning, everything a modern galactic soldier needed to learn. Then he paused. There are certain advanced simulations that carry restrictions, Zelak continued. His eyes swept across the auditorium and seemed to linger on the human section. The Crucible scenarios are available only to species cleared by the Galactic Council. Humans are permanently prohibited from participating in Crucible training. The auditorium erupted in whispers and laughter. Sarah felt her cheeks burn. Beside her, Marcus's jaw tightened. They had known about the restriction before arriving, but hearing it announced so publicly stung differently. "Of course they are," someone said loudly, loud enough to be heard. "Humans cannot handle real combat training. They are diplomats, not warriors." More laughter rippled through the crowd. "That is enough," Zelak said, but his tone lacked force. He did not seem particularly bothered by the mockery. The orientation continued, but Sarah barely heard the rest. The message was clear. Humans were second-class cadets here. They could attend, they could learn, but they were considered too weak for the truly challenging training. Over the following week, the pattern continued. In every class, during every exercise, the division became more obvious. The krill cadets were natural warriors, fast, strong, and aggressive. The Vorath were calculating hunters with excellent tactical instincts. The Thessians, beings made of living crystal, possessed incredible mental processing speeds that made them brilliant strategists. And the humans? They were average. Not terrible, but nothing special. During combat simulations, Sarah performed adequately. She hit her targets, followed orders, and completed objectives. But so did everyone else, usually faster or more efficiently. The alien cadets did not bother hiding their superiority. "Your species talks enemies to death, yes?" A Thessian named Kira Vol asked one day after simulations. Her crystalline face could not show expressions, but her tone carried clear condescension. "Perhaps you should request debate training instead of combat courses." Sarah forced a polite smile. "We manage." "Barely," Vexthor added, walking past with his krill squad. "I wonder how long before your species quits and returns to what they do best, negotiating surrender terms." The other humans endured similar treatment. Rodriguez stopped eating in the main cafeteria after someone made loud jokes about human weakness at the next table. Park studied alone in his quarters rather than face the mockery in group study sessions. Marcus, usually cheerful, grew quieter each day. Only Jackson seemed unaffected. When someone mocked him, he simply shrugged. "Think whatever you want," he said calmly. But Sarah could see the tension in his shoulders. It bothered him too. It bothered all of them. 2 weeks into the semester, the Academy announced upcoming Crucible observation sessions. Senior cadets would run the legendary simulations, and first-year students would watch to understand what they would eventually face. Everyone except humans, of course, Vex Thor announced cheerfully during tactics class. They must sit safely on the sidelines where they belong. Actually, Commander Zelak said from the doorway, startling everyone. There has been a change. The Academy will be showing historical footage instead. All cadets are required to attend. No exceptions. Something in his tone silenced the room. He was not asking. He was ordering. "What footage?" Vex Thor asked. Zelak's scarred face remained expressionless. "You will see. Formation begins at 1900 hours tomorrow, in the main auditorium. Attendance is mandatory." He turned to leave, then paused. "I suggest you watch carefully. What you learn may surprise you." After he left, speculation exploded across the class. "Probably showing human failures," someone suggested. "Teaching us what not to do. Maybe footage of why they got banned," another added. "Should be entertaining." But Sarah noticed something the others missed. When Commander Zelak mentioned the footage, he had looked directly at her, not with mockery or pity, with something else. Respect, maybe, or warning. That night, Sarah could not sleep. She kept thinking about Zelak's expression, about the mandatory viewing, about the permanent ban on human participation in Crucible training. Everyone assumed humans were banned because they were too weak, but what if that was not the real reason at all? The next evening, every cadet in the Academy filed into the main auditorium. The massive room could hold over 1,000 beings, and tonight it was completely full. Cadets filled every seat, talking excitedly about what they might see. Sarah sat with the other humans near the middle section. Around them, alien cadets continued their usual conversations, many still joking about human weakness. Vex Thor and his krill friend sat 2 rows behind them, making sure their voices carried forward. "Perhaps they will show us humans attempting the Crucible," Vex Thor said loudly. "I heard one fainted just watching the introduction video." His friends clicked their mandibles in laughter. Sarah forced herself to breathe slowly. Getting angry would only prove their point. Beside her, Marcus stared straight ahead, his face carefully neutral. Rodriguez gripped the armrest of her seat tightly, but said nothing. The lights dimmed suddenly, cutting off all conversation. Commander Zelak walked onto the stage, his heavy footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. But he was not alone. Walking beside him was a figure that made every cadet sit straighter in their seats. Admiral Kuvara. Sarah had seen pictures of the legendary Thessian warrior, but seeing her in person was different. The Admiral's crystalline body bore countless fractures and scars, marks of battles that should have killed her. She moved with deliberate grace, each step precise and measured. Her presence filled the entire auditorium with unspoken authority. This was a being who had fought in the Void Wars, who had commanded fleets when most of the cadets' parents were not yet born, who had personally negotiated peace treaties that saved billions of lives. What was she doing at a first-year cadet briefing? "Good evening." Admiral Kuvara's voice resonated through the room, clear and strong. "I am certain you are wondering why I am here tonight." No one answered. No one dared. 30 years ago, she continued, I made a decision that changed Academy policy forever. Tonight, you will understand why. She gestured to the massive holographic display behind her. "Commander Zelak, if you would begin." Zelak activated the display. Text appeared, showing details of something called the Crucible Scenario, Defensive Station Theta 9. The Crucible simulations, Zelak explained, are designed to test cadets beyond normal limits. They are not meant to be won. They are meant to teach you about sacrifice, about knowing when to retreat, About understanding your limitations. The display showed statistics. Sarah leaned forward, reading the numbers. Average completion time for Krill cadets, 4 hours and 12 minutes. Vorath cadets, 3 hours and 48 minutes. Thessian cadets, 5 hours and 6 minutes. These times represent how long different species can maintain defensive positions under impossible conditions, Zelak continued. The simulation increases difficulty every 30 minutes. Eventually, everyone fails. Everyone must accept defeat. He paused, letting that sink in. The record time, Admiral Kuvara said softly, was set by a Vorath warrior named Drakmar, 7 hours and 15 minutes. He maintained consciousness until the very end, then collapsed in his simulation pod. He survived, but required 2 full years of psychological recovery. The trauma was severe. Murmurs spread through the auditorium. Everyone knew Drakmar's name. He was a legend, a hero whose determination became a story told to inspire young warriors across the galaxy. 7 hours is considered the absolute limit, Zelak added. Beyond that point, the mind breaks. We learned this through painful experience. His scarred face looked grim. The Crucible was designed with this limit in mind. We believed nothing could push past 7 hours and remain functional. We were wrong, Admiral Kuvara said quietly. The display changed, showing a new file. It was marked with classification symbols Sarah did not recognize. Restricted. Council eyes only. Sealed by Galactic Authority. 30 years ago, the Admiral continued, humans were not restricted from Crucible training. We saw them as we see them now. Diplomatic, peaceful, not particularly strong by galactic standards. We assumed they would perform adequately, but nothing exceptional. Vex Thor clicked something that sounded like disagreement, but he did not speak. The weight of Admiral Kuvara's presence kept everyone silent. A human squad requested permission to attempt the Crucible, she said. 6 volunteers, all in excellent health, all eager to prove themselves. We saw no reason to deny them. It was, after all, just a training simulation. The display began loading video footage, old footage, marked with dates from 3 decades past. What you are about to see, Commander Zelak said, his voice carrying an edge Sarah had not heard before, has been classified for 30 years. The Galactic Council ordered this footage sealed. It has never been shown publicly. Not to recruits. Not to active soldiers, not to anyone outside the highest levels of command. Sarah felt her heart beating faster. Around the auditorium, every cadet leaned forward. Why show it now? Someone asked from the back, a brave Thessian cadet. Admiral Kuvara turned her fractured crystalline face toward the voice. Because mocking what you do not understand is dishonorable. Because making assumptions about other species without knowledge is dangerous. And because... She looked directly at the human section. These cadets deserve to know the truth about their own people. The lights dimmed further. The holographic display filled the entire front wall, massive and clear. Before we begin, Zelak said, I must warn you, this footage is difficult to watch. Some of what you will see may disturb you, but you will watch all of it. You will not leave. You will not look away. You will understand exactly why humans are banned from Crucible training. And you will understand, Admiral Kuvara added softly, that the ban exists not to protect humans from the Crucible. It exists to protect the Crucible from humans. Confused whispers spread through the crowd. That made no sense. How could weak humans threaten a simulation? Sarah's hands gripped her armrests. Something massive was about to be revealed. She could feel it in the tension filling the room. In the careful way both Zelak and Kuvara watched the human section, the footage began to play. Text appeared on screen. Crucible Scenario. Theta 9. Human Squad. First Attempt. Lieutenant Marcus Webb. Commanding. Sarah's breath caught. Webb. That was her family name. Her grandfather's name. On the screen, 6 humans entered a simulation chamber, their faces calm and determined. The youngest looked barely 20 years old, the oldest maybe 35. They looked ordinary, Nothing special, just humans. The simulation environment loaded around them a space station. Alarms blaring, enemy contacts approaching from all directions. The timer started. 0 hours, 0 minutes. Watch carefully, Admiral Kuvara said into the darkness, and learn why we fear what we once mocked. The auditorium fell completely silent except for the sound of the footage playing, and the truth began to unfold. The holographic display showed the 6 humans moving through Station Theta 9 with practiced efficiency. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, a lean man with calm eyes, directed his team through hand signals. They spread out, taking defensive positions as the first wave of enemy drones appeared. Standard protocol, Commander Zelak narrated quietly. First hour involves basic combat against automated units. Most species handle this easily. 4. The humans fired their weapons with decent accuracy. Nothing impressive, but competent. They covered each other. Rotated positions. Conserved ammunition. Professional, but unremarkable. Around the auditorium, cadets relaxed slightly. This looked normal, expected. The timer showed 30 minutes passing. Then 45. Then 1 hour. The simulation escalated. More drones appeared. Faster and better armed. The humans adapted, adjusting their tactics. One took a hit to the shoulder but kept fighting, gritting his teeth against the simulation's pain feedback. Hour 2 beginning, Zelak said. The station's environment began deteriorating. Sections collapsed. Fires broke out. Toxic atmosphere warnings flashed. The simulation was designed to add chaos, to test how warriors performed under multiple pressures simultaneously. A female human named Rodriguez took a direct hit, protecting a group of simulated civilians. She went down hard, her leg clearly broken in the simulation. The pain indicators on her biometric display spiked into red zones. She should withdraw for medical treatment, a Vorath cadet commented. Standard procedure. But Rodriguez did not withdraw. She dragged herself to cover, splinted her own leg using debris, and continued firing from a prone position. Her face showed pain, but her hands remained steady. Impressive pain tolerance, Vex Thor admitted grudgingly, but still within acceptable parameters. Hour 3 arrived. The humans passed the average time for most species. They were tired now, visibly sweating, breathing hard, but they maintained their positions. When one section of the station became unstable, they improvised immediately, using fallen beams to create new defensive barriers. A human named Park ran out of ammunition. Without hesitation, he grabbed a piece of broken metal and used it as a club, fighting hand-to-hand against drones designed for ranged combat. It was inefficient and dangerous, but it worked. They are adapting beyond their training, Admiral Kuvara observed. Watch how they think. Watch how they think. The simulation threw its Hour 4 challenges. This was where most species began failing, where the accumulated stress and damage became too much. The cadets in the auditorium knew this level. Many had experienced it themselves. The humans should have been braking now. Instead, they accelerated. Lieutenant Webb's arm was hit, nearly severed in the simulation. The pain should have rendered him unconscious. The medical readouts showed shock levels that would incapacitate any Vorath or Krill warrior. Webb stared at his ruined arm for exactly 2 seconds. Then he tied a tourniquet with his teeth in one hand, picked up his weapon with his remaining arm, and returned to commanding his squad. That is not possible, someone whispered in the auditorium. But the footage did not lie. Hour 5, Hour 6. The humans were breaking down physically. Their movements became slower, less precise. Blood covered their uniforms from dozens of simulated wounds. The biometric displays showed critical damage across all 6 soldiers, but they did not stop. Rodriguez, with her broken leg, dragged herself across an entire corridor to reach wounded civilians, then defended them alone for 12 minutes against overwhelming odds. Her scream of defiance when 3 drones cornered her made several cadets flinch. The simulation reached Hour 7 Drakmar's record time. The auditorium was completely silent now. Every eye fixed on the display. This was impossible. Humans were not supposed to be capable of this. The simulation did not care. It continued escalating. Fire raged through sections of the station. Structural supports collapsed. The enemy count multiplied beyond any reasonable scenario, and the humans kept fighting. "Look at their communication," Commander Zelak said, his voice carrying new respect. "They have stopped using tactical language." He was right. The humans no longer called out positions or enemy counts. Instead, they spoke to each other differently. "Remember why we're here," Webb said, his voice rough with pain. "Those civilians get home," Rodriguez answered, firing despite her shattered leg. "Not one more dies on our watch," Park added, swinging his makeshift weapon. They were not fighting tactically anymore. They were fighting emotionally, drawing strength from something the simulation could not measure or predict. Hour 8, Hour 9, Hour 10. 3 humans were down now, unconscious from accumulated damage. The remaining 3 dragged them to safety and continued fighting. Webb coordinated defense with only one functioning arm and injuries that should have killed him. The biometric displays were terrifying. Pain levels far beyond fatal thresholds. Exhaustion that exceeded biological possibility. Blood pressure, heart rate, neural activity, everything screamed that these bodies should have shut down. But human bodies, it seemed, did not always listen to biological logic. "How?" Vexthor whispered, his mockery completely gone. "How are they still moving?" Admiral Kuvara answered quietly. "Because they decided to. That is all. They simply refused to stop." Hour 12, Hour 15. The footage became harder to watch. The humans were barely recognizable as functional soldiers. They stumbled. They bled. They could barely hold their weapons. Every movement looked agonizing, but they held the line. A massive explosion rocked the station in Hour 16. 2 more humans fell unconscious. Only Webb and Rodriguez remained aware. Though calling them functional was generous, Webb actually crawled on his stomach to check the civilian evacuation timer. Still 30 minutes remaining. He looked at Rodriguez, who could barely keep her eyes open. "Can you hold?" he asked. She nodded. "Just a small movement. Until they're safe." Hour 17, Hour 18. Rodriguez finally collapsed, her body simply giving up. Webb was alone now, surrounded by his unconscious team, defending the final evacuation point against endless waves of enemies. He should not have been conscious. Every medical indicator said he was already dead. His heart rate was failing. His blood pressure had dropped to critical levels. His pain receptors had simply stopped registering, overloaded beyond function. Lieutenant Marcus Webb propped himself against a wall, raised his weapon with his one working arm, and kept firing. The evacuation timer ticked down. 20 minutes, 15, 10. Webb's weapon clicked empty. He dropped it, picked up a piece of debris, and used that instead. When he could not swing anymore, he threw broken metal at approaching drones. When he had nothing left to throw, he positioned his body in the doorway, blocking access to the civilians physically. 5 minutes remaining. Webb could not stand anymore. He sat in the doorway, his back against the frame, barely conscious. Drones approached. He looked at them with eyes that could barely focus, and he smiled. "Not one more," he whispered. The timer reached 0. The simulation registered successful civilian evacuation. Total time, 19 hours, 47 minutes. On the display, Lieutenant Webb's eyes closed. His body went still. In the real world outside the simulation, alarms blared. Medical teams rushed to the pods. 5 humans survived after weeks of intensive care. Marcus Webb's heart had simply stopped. Exhaustion beyond what any body could endure. The footage ended. The auditorium remained completely silent. Sarah Chen sat with tears streaming down her face, staring at the frozen image of her grandfather's final smile. The lights remained dim in the auditorium. No one moved. No one spoke. The image of Lieutenant Marcus Webb's final moment hung frozen on the massive display, a human who had pushed beyond every possible limit until his body simply could not continue. Admiral Kuvara let the silence stretch for a full minute before speaking. "We thought the simulation malfunctioned," she said quietly. 19 hours was impossible. No species should be able to endure that long. So we recalibrated everything, checked every system, and tested again. The display changed, showing new footage. Elite Vorath soldiers entering the same simulation with the exact same parameters. They fought brilliantly, using superior strength and tactical knowledge. They lasted 8 hours and 32 minutes before their squad leader called for emergency extraction. 2 suffered severe psychological trauma. Next came Krill warriors, famous for their endurance and aggression. 7 hours and 48 minutes. They fought until their bodies collapsed, then spent months recovering from the mental damage. Thessian tactical experts. 9 hours and 6 minutes. Their superior processing speed helped them last longer. But even crystalline minds had breaking points. We tested 12 different species, Commander Zelak said. All volunteers, all elite soldiers, not cadets. The longest any species lasted was 9 hours and 23 minutes. Most could not reach 8 hours without permanent damage. He paused, his scarred face grave. The simulation was not broken. The humans were just that far beyond what we understood as possible. 2. The display shifted again, showing medical reports and research documents. Sarah tried to read them through her tears, struggling to understand the technical language. We studied their performance extensively, Admiral Kuvara continued. We needed to understand how they did it. The answer was not physical. Humans are not stronger than Vorath. They are not faster than Krill. They do not have superior tactical processing like Thessians. She walked to the edge of the stage, her crystalline body reflecting the dim lights. What humans possess is something we could not measure in our laboratories. They called it different names: determination, willpower, stubbornness, the refusal to quit. Her voice carried wonder and something like fear. While our species fight with honor, with strategy, with strength, humans fight with something else entirely. They fight with an irrational belief that they can continue when logic says they should stop. Commander Zelak activated another series of files. These are classified military records from actual combat situations. We found the same pattern repeating across human history. The display showed incident reports. A human medic named Chen, who held a position for 36 hours during the Frontier Uprising, protecting wounded soldiers from 3 different species. Medical scans showed she had been clinically dead for the final 4 hours, her body running on something doctors could not explain. She survived. A human pilot named Torres, who flew her damaged ship into an enemy carrier to save her fleet. The communication logs showed her singing a children's song on the open channel until the moment of impact. Intelligence later learned it was her daughter's favorite lullaby. Human soldiers carrying wounded comrades across impossible distances. Humans staying behind so others could evacuate. Humans throwing themselves into danger so that aliens, beings from completely different species, could live. We found hundreds of examples, Zelak said. In every major conflict involving human forces, there were incidents that defied explanation. Humans pushing past death itself to complete their mission or save others. A Vorath cadet stood up suddenly in the back of the auditorium. But why? His voice cracked. Why would they do this? What drives them to such extremes? Admiral Kuvara looked directly at the humans section, at Sarah and her fellow cadets. That is the question we asked Lieutenant Webb's team when they recovered, she said. We needed to understand. One of the survivors, Sergeant Martinez, gave us an answer we did not expect. The display showed an interview recording. A human woman, still bandaged and weak, sitting in a hospital bed. Her voice was quiet but steady. The Admiral keeps asking why we pushed so hard, Martinez said on the recording. She thinks we were trying to prove something about humanity. Set a record. Show we were strong. She shook her head slowly. That was not it at all. Those simulated civilians, we knew they were not real. Just computer programs. But in our minds, they became real. They had families waiting. Children. Loved ones who needed them to come home. Martinez looked directly into the camera, her eyes fierce despite her exhaustion. We did not fight for 19 hours to prove humans were the strongest. We fought because those people, even fake ones, deserved someone who would not give up on them. Lieutenant Webb did not die trying to set a record. He died making sure everyone else got to live. That is what humans do. We protect. Even when it costs everything. The recording ended. The auditorium remained silent, but something had changed. The mockery was gone. The casual dismissal of human capability had vanished. In its place was something new, understanding, tinged with concern. Sarah Chen stood up slowly. Her legs shook, but she remained standing. Every eye in the auditorium turned toward her. "Lieutenant Marcus Webb was my grandfather," she said, her voice carrying in the quiet. "He told my father something before he died in that medical facility. My father told me before I came here." She swallowed hard, fighting back more tears. He said, "Make sure they understand we did not do it to prove anything. We did it because those civilians had families waiting. Even if they were not real. The principle was, someone needed to care enough to not quit. That is what humans are for." She sat down, emotionally exhausted. Commander Zelak stepped forward again. "We banned humans from the Crucible training for one simple reason. The simulation is designed to teach acceptable loss. To teach when to retreat. To teach warriors about their limits." His voice grew harder. "Humans do not have limits the way we understand them. They have breaking points, yes, but those points exist so far beyond reason that training them to find those limits became unethical. We would be teaching humans to destroy themselves. In the name of never surrendering." Admiral Kuvara added the final truth. "Every human accepted into this academy is descended from or connected to individuals who displayed this same pattern. You, 5, she looked at the human cadets, carry the same genetic and cultural inheritance as Lieutenant Webb and his team." She let that sink in. "You are not banned from the Crucible to protect you from failing. You are banned because if we trained all of humanity's warriors to reach their breaking points, the galaxy would face something terrifying. An army of soldiers who do not understand the word surrender, who will fight until they physically cannot continue, who value others' lives above their own survival." The Admiral's crystalline face could not show expressions, but her voice carried deep respect and deeper concern. "We learned that lesson 30 years ago. We will not repeat that mistake. Humans will train here. They will learn tactics, strategy, and combat. But they will not learn to find their ultimate limits. Because those limits, we discovered, are too far beyond what any being should ever reach." The lights came up slowly. 300 cadets sat in complete silence, looking at 5 humans with entirely new eyes. The mockery was over. The real understanding was just beginning. The days following the presentation changed everything at Galactic Military Academy. The transformation was not loud or dramatic, but it was undeniable. Cadets who had mocked humans now walked past them in thoughtful silence. Others approached with questions, genuine curiosity replacing their earlier dismissal. Sarah was in the library 3 days later when Vex Thor approached her table. The tall Krill warrior stood awkwardly, his forearms folded in a posture she had learned meant uncertainty. "May I speak with you?" he asked, his clicking voice quieter than usual. Sarah looked up from her tactical studies. "Of course." Vex Thor's antennae lowered a Krill gesture of respect and apology. "I mocked your people. I called you weak. I made jokes about things I did not understand." He paused, searching for words. "I was wrong. Not just incorrect, but dishonorable. I judged without knowledge." "Apology accepted," Sarah said simply. "Your grandfather," Vex Thor continued, "he fought for 19 hours to save people who were not even real. My people value strength and victory. But that is something different, something I am still trying to understand." Sarah closed her book. "My grandfather taught my father that real strength is not about never falling down. It is about what you are willing to stand up for, even when standing up costs everything." Vex Thor was silent for a moment, processing this. Then he nodded slowly. "I would be honored to train alongside you, to learn from your perspective." Over the following weeks, similar conversations happened across the academy. The Thessian cadet Kira Vol, who had suggested humans needed debate training instead of combat courses, approached Rodriguez with a formal apology. A group of Voreth students asked Marcus if he would join their tactical study group. The humans found themselves included in ways they had not experienced before. Not as tokens or curiosities, but as equals whose perspectives carried value. During a joint combat exercise, a Voreth cadet named Skartel suggested an aggressive frontal assault on a simulated enemy position. It was bold, tactically sound, and would likely succeed. Jackson, one of the human cadets, raised his hand. That would work. He agreed. But we would lose at least 40% of our squad in the process. There is usually another way. 6 weeks earlier, his suggestion would have been dismissed. Now, the entire squad listened. What do you propose? Skartel asked with genuine interest. Jackson outlined a slower approach, using deception and misdirection. It would take longer but preserve the team. The squad adopted his plan. They completed the mission with 0 casualties. A better outcome than a quick victory with heavy losses. After the exercise, Skartel approached Jackson. Your species thinks differently about acceptable cost. We, Vorath, are warriors. We accept losses as necessary for victory, but you showed us that victory means nothing if everyone dies achieving it. My people learned that lesson the hard way, Jackson replied, many times throughout our history. Sarah requested a private meeting with Admiral Kuvara. The legendary Thessian granted it immediately, inviting Sarah to her office, a space filled with artifacts from a lifetime of military service. You wanted to see me? Kuvara asked, gesturing for Sarah to sit. I wanted to ask about my grandfather's memorial, Sarah said. Does one exist? Kuvara's crystalline face tilted thoughtfully. Follow me. She led Sarah through restricted corridors to a sealed section of the academy Sarah had never seen. The Admiral pressed her hand to a security panel, and massive doors opened to reveal a circular chamber, the Hall of Limits. Carved into the walls were thousands of names from dozens of species. Each name marked a being who had pushed beyond what should be possible. Warriors who held impossible positions, pilots who flew damaged ships home against all odds, medics who saved lives while injured themselves. This hall honors those who showed us what determination truly means, Kuvara explained. Every species has representatives here. Those who proved that limits are not walls, but challenges to overcome. She led Sarah to a specific section. There, carved in stone, were 6 names: Lieutenant Marcus Webb, Sergeant Maria Martinez, Corporal James Park, Private First Class Ana Rodriguez, Specialist David Kim, Specialist Robert Sullivan. Sarah's hand trembled as she touched her grandfather's name. He is remembered here, Kuvara said softly. Not as a cautionary tale, but as an example of what becomes possible when someone refuses to accept impossible. When someone values others' lives above their own. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. Thank you for showing me this. Your grandfather taught the entire galaxy something we needed to learn, the Admiral replied. That strength is not just about how hard you can fight. It is about what you are willing to fight for. The semester continued with new dynamics. Humans still could not access the Crucible simulations, but now they served in a different capacity. They became advisors, teaching other species not how to push beyond limits, but how to recognize when determination crosses into self-destruction. Park taught a seminar on sustainable tactics. Rodriguez led discussions on protecting squad members during high-stress operations. Marcus worked with medical teams on recognizing psychological stress before it became damaging. The humans taught something unexpected, that knowing when to stop was its own form of strength. That retreat was sometimes the right choice. That completing the mission meant nothing if your entire team died doing it. Ironically, this was something humans struggled with themselves but other species excelled at. The Vorath knew when honor demanded retreat. The Krill understood strategic withdrawal. The Thessians calculated acceptable risk with precision. We need each other, Sarah realized during one mixed-species training session. Humans push too far sometimes. Other species help us understand limits. But we help them understand why some things are worth pushing for. The final exercise before semester break involved all first-year cadets in a massive simulation. Mixed species squads faced a difficult rescue scenario, with multiple objectives and limited time. Sarah's squad included Vex's Thor, Kira Vol, Skartel, and 2 other aliens. When they encountered an unexpected complication, civilians trapped in a collapsing structure, disagreement erupted. "We must save them," Vex Thor insisted. "It is the right thing to do. The mission parameters do not prioritize civilian rescue," Kira Vol calculated. "We should continue to primary objectives." The squad looked at Sarah. She took a breath, thinking about her grandfather. About 19 hours of impossible determination. About dying to save computer-generated people. "Because the principle mattered, my grandfather would have tried to save them," she said quietly. "But he also knew the cost. He chose to pay it because the mission required it. This simulation does not require that sacrifice. We can complete the objectives and help these people, but only if we accept it will take longer, and we might not get the highest score." She looked at each squad member. "Real strength is not refusing to quit. It is choosing what battles matter and what price you are willing to pay. I say we save them. But we do it smart. We work together, use everyone's strengths, and we all make it out. Not just us, everyone." The squad agreed. They completed the mission with 0 casualties and rescued all civilians. Their tactical score was lower than squads who ignored the civilians, but their overall evaluation was marked exemplary, demonstrated true understanding of warrior principles. Graduation day for the semester arrived. Admiral Kuvara addressed all cadets one final time before break. "You arrived believing strength meant never backing down," she said. "You leave understanding that strength means choosing your battles, protecting those beside you, fighting for principles worth defending, and knowing that the greatest warriors are those who fight so others do not have to." Her crystalline gaze swept across the assembled cadets and settled on the human section. "To our human graduates, your ancestors showed us what you are capable of. Now you must teach yourselves when to use it and when to find another way. That wisdom, combined with your determination, will make you true warriors." After the ceremony, Sarah visited the Hall of Limits one final time before leaving for break. She stood before her grandfather's name, her hand resting on the carved stone. "I understand now. Grandpa," she whispered. "You did not fight to prove humans were strongest. You fought because you believed everyone deserved someone who would not give up on them. You knew the cost and paid it anyway." She stepped back, straightening her uniform. "I will remember that. I will be strong when it matters. But I will also be wise enough to know when another way is better. That is what you would want." As she walked away to join her squad, Vex's Thor, Kira Vol, Skartel, and others who had become true friends, she passed beneath words carved above the hall's entrance. "Here are honored those who showed us that limits exist not to stop us, but to remind us what we are willing to sacrifice for what truly matters." Outside, her mixed species squad waited. Different species, different strengths, different perspectives, but united by understanding and respect, earned through truth. Sarah smiled and joined them, ready for whatever came next.